I used to think I thrived on solitude. Spent my 20s chasing photos in remote corners of the country, the kind of places where the horizon stretches forever and cell service is a forgotten luxury. It was just me, my camera gear crammed into the back of my sturdy old SUV, and the open road. The routes I favored often took me through landscapes that felt ancient and empty, vast stretches of desert and scrubland that bordered two large states out west. Places locals knew to respect, full of unpredictable weather and long, long silences. My latest project had me crisscrossing some particularly lonely highways near the Arizona-New Mexico line. I'd been on the road for what felt like forever, chasing a storm system for dramatic sky shots. It was late, hours past midnight, the kind of deep, oppressive darkness you only find far from city lights. The radio had dissolved into white noise miles back. The only sounds were the hum of my engine, the occasional sigh of the wind, and the steady rhythm of my tires on the asphalt. It was hypnotic, almost lulling. I'd been driving for maybe 10 hours, running on lukewarm coffee and the sheer stubbornness that comes from being on a deadline. My eyes felt gritty, heavy. You fight that feeling, you know? Slap your cheeks, roll down the window even though the desert air is biting cold, blast whatever terrible podcast managed to download before you lost signal. I was doing all of it, trying to keep the fog at bay. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was definitely in that weird, twilight state where your brain is just barely ticking over, seeing things at the edges of your vision. The white lines on the highway seemed to ripple and stretch like taffy. Classic fatigue. I remember blinking hard, forcing myself to focus on the ribbon of road ahead. That's when I saw it. Or thought I saw it. A tiny movement, a flicker right at the periphery of my headlights, on the gravel shoulder to my right. Small. Low to the ground. For just a second, my brain registered a shape, fleeting, vague, maybe human-like, and then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished into the absolute blackness beside the road. My first thought was wildlife. A javelina maybe, or a coyote. Common enough out here. But it hadn't darted or scurried. It had seemed upright. My tired mind struggled to process it. Too small for an adult. Too still for an animal surprised by a vehicle barreling down on it. Then, the more rational part of me, the voice that screamed safety in this isolated place, kicked in. You're exhausted, Anya. You're seeing things. It happens when you push too hard. And for a moment, I bought it. Shook my head, took a long swig of the cold, metallic-tasting water from my bottle. Glued my eyes back to the road. But the image, that brief, unsettling glimpse of something small and upright, it stuck. Like a child. No way, I told myself, the thought firming up. Out here? Middle of nowhere? Middle of the night? Impossible. Kids didn't just appear on remote state highways at 3 a.m., especially not in this kind of desolate country. It had to be a trick of the light, a scrub bush catching the glare, my eyes playing cruel games. I'd seen weirder things born of sheer, desperate tiredness, shadows that danced, rock formations that looked like figures standing just out of sight. It was just part of the cost of this kind of work, pushing limits. I drove on for another minute, maybe, the image starting to fade, my rational mind asserting control. Just a hallucination. Then, out of habit, I glanced at my passenger side mirror. Always checking. And that's when it happened. My blood didn't just run cold, it felt like it froze solid in my veins, like liquid nitrogen had been poured into my arteries. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my taillights receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure, standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I'd seen that flicker. It wasn't a bush. It wasn't a shadow. It was small, and it was definitely standing there, unmoving, as my SUV pulled further and further away from it. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in my chest. This wasn't fatigue anymore. This was real. There was someone, something, back there. And it looked tiny. Every survival instinct in my body screamed at me, danger. Wrong. Keep going. Get out of here, now. But another voice, smaller but insistent, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt? Lost? I fought with myself in that silent, dark cab. Seconds stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was shrinking, fading. If I didn't do something right now, they'd be swallowed by the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out there, if that's truly what it was, the guilt would haunt me forever. Against every screaming fiber of my being, against that primal, terrified urge to just floor it and disappear into the night, I made the impossible decision. I slowed the car, the brakes hissing softly. Pulled over to the shoulder, the vehicle protesting with a groan of suspension. Flipped on my hazards, their rhythmic blinking a jarring, desperate pulse in the oppressive blackness. Then, I did the thing you're never supposed to do alone on a narrow, isolated shoulder in the dark. I started to reverse. Slowly. Carefully. My eyes flicking between the mirrors, trying to keep the SUV straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded unnaturally loud, deafening in the silence. It took a minute, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. My headlights eventually washed over the spot again. And there it was. A kid. I stopped the car so my window was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away. Switched on my high beams, hoping for a better look, needing to make myself clearly visible as just a vehicle, nothing predatory or strange. The kid was small. Really small. I'd guess maybe 6, 7 years old. Hard to tell in the harsh glare. They were just standing there, on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the scrub gave way to something darker and denser. Out here, that meant the edge of the desert wilderness, maybe stretching towards mountains I couldn't see. It pressed in close on this stretch of road, thorny bushes and low-lying trees that looked like a solid black wall just beyond the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking. Slowly. Like they were on a leisurely stroll, completely oblivious to the large vehicle that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling, lights blazing. They were wearing what looked like pajamas. Thin, light-colored pajamas. In the chill of the desert night. No coat, no shoes that I could see on their bare feet. My mind reeled. This was wrong. So many levels of wrong, it was staggering. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was startling, amplifying the chirping of unseen insects and the faint rustle of dry leaves in a breeze I couldn't feel. My heart was still pounding, a weird knot of fear, adrenaline, and a terrifying sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air hit me, cold and dry, carrying the scent of dust and something faintly herbal from the desert plants. "Hey!" I called out. My voice was hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey, kid." No response. They just kept walking, one small, bare foot after the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere fast. Their head was down, slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time, trying to inject warmth into my voice. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, the kids stopped. They didn't turn their head fully, just sort of angled at a fraction, enough that I could see a pale sliver of cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me. Still seemingly ignoring the tons of metal idling beside them. A prickle of unease, deep and cold, snaked down my spine. This wasn't the normal unease of being alone at night. This was alien. Kids act scared, maybe cry, get relief when someone stops. This one was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, gentle, like you would with a scared child. Even though this one didn't seem scared at all. It's the middle of the night. Silence. Just the soft scuffing sound of their bare feet on the gravel as they took another step, then another. As if my presence was nothing more than a minor annoyance, a background noise they were choosing to tune out. This wasn't right. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear shift. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of there. But the image of this tiny child, alone, barefoot in pajamas, potentially in shock. I couldn't just leave. Could I? "Where are your parents?" I pushed, my voice a bit sharper than I intended. "Are you lost?" Finally, the kids stopped walking completely. They turned their head, just a little more. Still not looking directly at my window, more towards the front of the car, into the blinding glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now. Pale. Utterly featureless in the harsh light, like a cheap doll's face. Small, dark smudges where eyes should be. No expression. None at all. Not fear, not sadness, not relief. Just blank. An unreadable slate. Then a voice. Small. Thin. Like the rustle of dry tumbleweeds blowing across the road. Lost. Just that one word. It hung in the air between us, sharp and sudden. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by a fresh surge of concern. Okay, lost. That's something I can handle. That's human. Okay, kid. Lost is okay. We can fix lost. Where do you live? Where were you going? The kid finally, slowly, turned their head fully towards my window. Towards me. I still couldn't make out much detail in their face. The angle, the light, something was obscuring it, keeping it in a sort of shadowy vagueness despite the direct headlights. But I could feel their gaze. It wasn't like a normal kid's look. There was a weight to it, an intensity that was deeply unsettling coming from such a small form. Home, the kid said, that same thin, reedy voice. Trying to get home. Right, home. Where is home? I asked, leaning forward slightly, trying to project reassurance. Is it near here? Did you wander off from a campsite? A car? There were no campsites for miles out here. No broken down cars anywhere on the shoulder I'd passed. I knew that. The kid didn't answer that question directly. Instead, they took a small step towards the car. Then another. My hand tensed on the door handle, ready to open it, to offer, what? A ride? Shelter? I didn't know. It's cold out here, I said, stating the obvious, my gaze flicking down to their bare feet on the sharp gravel. You should get in. We can get you warm, and I can call for help when we get to a spot with a signal. My satellite phone was useless out here. My cell had shown no service for the last hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door. Still in that pale, thin pajama-like outfit. Barefoot on the sharp gravel. They should be shivering, crying. They were doing neither. Can you help me? The kid asked. The voice was still small, but there was a different inflection to it now. Less flat. A hint of something else. Pleading, maybe? Hey everyone, quick pause here. I'm sitting here retelling this, and even now, months later, I get this cold knot in my stomach remembering that moment. That shift in their voice, it just felt wrong. Like the script suddenly changed. Have any of you ever felt like something was trying to play a part, and then they slipped up and showed you something else? Let me know in the comments below if you've ever had an experience where someone or something just felt off. Okay, back to the story. Yeah, of course, I can help you, I said, trying to sound reassuring, but my heart was still pounding. That's why I stopped. Where are your parents? How did you get here? The kid tilted their head. A jerky, unnatural little movement like a broken toy. They're waiting. At home. Okay. And where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the empty highway. The kid didn't point down the road. They made a small, subtle gesture with their head, a little nod, towards the scrub and trees. Towards the impenetrable darkness of the wilderness lining the highway. In there, the kid said. My stomach clenched. In the wilderness? In the woods? Your home is in the woods? Lost, the kid repeated, as if that explained everything. Trying to find the path. It's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, my eyes scanning the tree-line. It looked like a solid wall of black. No sign of any path, any sign of human habitation. Just dense, old-growth desert scrub and trees. The kind of place you could get lost in for days, even in daylight. Can you come out? The kid asked. Help me look? It's not far. I can't see it from here. Every rational thought in my head screamed a no. Get out of the car? In the middle of nowhere, in the pitch dark, with this strange child who wanted me to go into that wilderness? No. Absolutely not. Being a woman alone out here, The vulnerability felt amplified 1,000 times. Stepping out of the car felt like stepping off a cliff. But the kid looked so small, so vulnerable. Barefoot, in pajamas. If there was even a tiny chance they were telling the truth, that their house was just a little way in, and they were genuinely lost, could I live with myself if I didn't try? I don't think that's a good idea, sweetie, I said, trying to sound gentle, trying to project warmth despite the fear. It's dangerous in there at night. For both of us. The best thing is for you to hop in here with me. We'll drive until we get a signal, and then we'll call for help. The police, or maybe the rangers who know this area. They can help find your home properly. The kid just stood there. That blank, unreadable face fixed on me. But it's right there, they insisted, their voice a little more insistent now. Just a little way. I can almost see it. If you just step out, the light from your door would help. My skin was crawling. There was something profoundly wrong with this scenario. The way they were trying to coax me out. The complete lack of normal emotional response from a child. The pajamas. The bare feet. The request to go into the featureless dark. I looked closer at the kid, trying to pierce that strange vagueness around their features. My headlights were bright, focused right on them, but it was like they absorbed the light rather than reflected it. Their eyes. I still couldn't really see their eyes. Just dark hollows, like smudges of charcoal. I really think you should get in the car, I said, my voice firmer now, trying to cut through the weirdness. It's warmer in here. We can figure it out together. The kid took another step closer. They were almost at my running board now. Please, they said. That reedy voice again, with that unsettling hint of pleading. My leg hurts. I can't walk much further. If you could just help me a little. Just to the path. My internal conflict was raging. My instincts, honed by years of traveling alone and seeing weird stuff in lonely places, were screaming warnings. This is a trap. This is wrong. Get out. But the human part, the part that saw a small child in distress, was still there, still arguing. What if they're telling the truth? What if they really are hurt? I was tired. So damn tired. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. Maybe this was all just some bizarre misunderstanding, a scared child lost and confused. I squinted, trying to see past the kid, towards the tree line they'd indicated. Was there a faint trail I was missing? A flicker of light deep in the woods? No. Nothing. Just blackness. Solid, unyielding blackness. And then I saw it. It wasn't something I saw clearly at first. It was more like an anomaly. A disturbance in the darkness behind the kid. The kid was standing with their back mostly to the woods, facing my car. Behind them, the darkness of the desert scrub and trees was absolute. Or it should have been. But there was something connected to them. Something that stretched from the small of their back, from under the thin pajama top, and disappeared into the deeper shadows of the trees. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a weird shadow cast by my headlights hitting them at an odd angle. Maybe a rope they were dragging? A piece of clothing snagged on a branch? I leaned forward, pressing my face closer to the glass, trying to get a clearer view. The kid was still talking, their voice a low, persistent murmur. "It's not far, please, just help me. I'm so cold." But I wasn't really listening to the words anymore. I was focused on that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope. It wasn't a shadow. It was a tube. A long, dark, thick tube. It seemed to emerge directly from the kid's lower back, impossibly, seamlessly. It was dark matte, like a strip of the night itself given form, and it snaked away from the child, maybe 10, 15 feet, before disappearing into the inky blackness between two thick trees. It wasn't rigid, it seemed to have a slight, almost imperceptible flexibility, like a massive, sluggish umbilical cord made of shadow. It didn't reflect any light from my headlamps. It just absorbed it. My breath hitched in my throat. My blood, which had been cold before, now felt like it had frozen solid, turned to glass. This wasn't just wrong. This was impossible. Unnatural. The kid was still trying to coax me. "Are you going to help me? It's just there. You're so close." My voice, when I finally found it, was barely a whisper. I couldn't take my eyes off that appendage. "Kid, what is that? Behind you?" The kid flinched. Not a big movement, just a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening of their small frame. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. The blankness on their face seemed to solidify. "What's what?" they asked, their voice suddenly devoid of that pleading tone. It was flat again. Colder. That thing," I stammered, pointing with a shaking finger towards the woods. "Coming out of your back. Going into the woods. What is that?" The kid didn't turn to look. They didn't need to. Their gaze, those dark, unseen eyes, bored into me. "It's nothing," they said. The voice was still small, but it had a new edge to it. A hardness. "You're seeing things. You're tired." They were using my own earlier rationalization against me. "No," I said, my voice gaining a tremor of conviction born of sheer terror. "No, I'm not. I see it. It's right there. It's connected to you." The kid was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the frantic thumping of my own heart, so loud I was sure they could hear it through the car door. The desert insects had stopped their chirping. The wind seemed to die down. An unnatural, heavy stillness fell over the scene. Then the kid's face began to change. It wasn't a dramatic, movie monster transformation. It was far more subtle and far more terrifying. The blankness didn't leave, but it sharpened. The pale skin seemed to tighten over the bones. The areas where the eyes were, those dark smudges, seemed to deepen, to become more shadowed, more intense. And a flicker of something ancient and utterly alien passed across their features. It wasn't human anger. It was something older, colder, and infinitely more patient, now strained to its limit by my refusal. The air in my SUV suddenly felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. "Just come out of the car," the kid said, and the voice, oh God, the voice. It wasn't the small, reedy voice of a child anymore. It was deeper, resonant, with a strange, grating undertone like stones grinding together. It was coming from that small frame, but it was impossibly large, impossibly old. It vibrated in my chest, rattling my bones. Come out. Now. The command was absolute. My hand, which had been hovering near the gear shift, now gripped it like a lifeline. My other hand fumbled for the ignition key, which I'd stupidly left in. "What are you?" I choked out, staring at the monstrous thing playing dress-up in a child's form at the dark, pulsating tube that was its anchor to the shadows. The kid's head tilted again, that jerky, unnatural movement. The expression on its face, if you could even call it that, was one of pure, unadulterated annoyance. Contempt. Like I was a particularly stupid insect it had failed to swat away. And then it spoke, in that same terrible, resonant, grinding voice. The words it said are burned into my memory, colder than any winter night, colder than the desert wind. "Why?" it rasped, the sound seeming to scrape the inside of my skull. "The fuck are humans smarter now?" That was it. That one sentence. The sheer, cosmic frustration in it. The implication of past encounters, of easier prey. The utter alien nature of it. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I reacted. Primal fear, the kind that bypasses all higher brain function, took over. My hand twisted the key. The engine roared back to life, a sudden, violent explosion of sound in the horrifying stillness. The kid, the thing, actually recoiled. A small, jerky step back. The expression, that awful, tightened, ancient look, intensified. I slammed the gear shift into drive. My foot stomped on the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel for a terrifying second before they bit into the asphalt. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I stared straight ahead, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the whole car vibrating around me. The SUV surged forward, gaining speed with agonizing slowness on the loose surface. For a horrible moment, I imagined that tube thing whipping out, trying to snag the back of my car, to pull me back, to drag me into those woods. I imagined that small figure, with its ancient, terrible voice, somehow keeping pace, effortlessly running beside me. I risked a glance in my driver's side mirror. It was standing there, on the shoulder, unmoving. The headlights of my departing car cast its small silhouette into sharp relief. And behind it, the dark tube was still visible, a thick, obscene cord snaking back into the endless night of the wilderness. It didn't seem to be retracting or moving. It just was. The thing didn't pursue. It just stood and watched me go. And that, somehow, was almost worse. The sheer confidence. The patience. Like it knew there would be others. Or maybe it was just annoyed that this particular attempt had failed. I drove. I don't know for how long. I just drove. My foot was welded to the floor. The engine screamed in protest at the speed. I watched the speedometer needle climb, far past any legal or safe limit for that road, on a night that dark. I didn't care. The image of that thing, that child shape with its dark umbilical to the woods, and that voice, that awful, grinding voice asking its horrifying question was burned onto the inside of my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, at speeds that should have sent me crashing before the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep, shaking exhaustion that was more profound than any fatigue I'd ever known. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely keep the wheel straight. Tears were streaming down my face, not from sadness, but from sheer, unadulterated terror and the shaky, fragile dawn of relief. When the first hint of dawn started to gray the eastern sky, and my phone finally beeped, indicating a single precious bar of service, I pulled over at the first wide spot I could find. I practically fell out of the car, vomiting onto the gravel until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sat there on the cold ground, shaking, for a long time, watching the sun come up, trying to convince myself that it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and isolation. But I knew it wasn't. The detail of that tube, the voice, the question. You don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that utterly alien. I never reported it. Who would I report it to? What would I say? Officer, I saw a little kid out in the desert who was actually an ancient cosmic horror tethered to the wilderness by a nightmare umbilical cord, and it got mad because I didn't want to go into the trees with it. They'd have locked me up, breathalyzed me, drug tested me, sent me for a psych eval. I finished that trip on autopilot, made it to my destination, handed over the photos, and I sold the SUV and quit chasing storms in remote places. I told people I was burned out, needed a change. They tried to convince me to keep going, offered me assignments closer to cities, better pay. I just couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that kid, that tube, that wall of dark trees. Every dark, lonely road felt like a trap waiting to spring. I found a local job, something that keeps me home at night. I don't drive in remote areas anymore if I can help it. Especially not at night. I still have nightmares. Sometimes, when I'm very tired, driving home late from somewhere, I'll see a flicker at the edge of my vision, on the side of the road, and my heart will try to beat its way out of my chest. I don't know what that thing was. An alien? A demon? Something else entirely, something that doesn't fit into our neat little categories of reality? All I know is that it's out there. And it's patient. And it seems to have learned that its old tricks aren't as effective as they used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question haunts me. It implies they weren't always. It implies that, once upon a time, we were easier prey. That maybe, just maybe, people like me, tired and alone on dark roads, used to just step out of the car when asked, and were never seen again. So, if you're ever driving one of those long, lonely stretches of road, deep in the night, and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop. Knowing when to ignore that little voice telling you to help, because what's asking for help might not be what it seems. Stay safe out there. And for God's sake, stay on the well-lit roads. And hey, if this story resonated with you or sent a shiver down your spine, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It helps me know what kind of stories you want to hear. Thanks for listening.